Or
And now. Yeah, everyone, everybody.
My relatives.
They had was people who were ready.
Oh. My grandmother told me.
With 5 people there, they'd gone down on the floor, yeah. He's the one, and then all now and taking these, yeah.
Yeah. How long ago was that?
It's been a long time ago, soon we found him, he, and.
Alright. Oh, you were. I'll have to read all the.
Way back when very good along the way.
it must be
How long?
kind of busy.
All right, welcome everybody to the Wednesday, June 7th, 2023 meeting. I'd like to open the floor up for public comments for items not on the agenda for discussion. Is there any comments from the public? All right, moving on to town reports. Hand it off to Vika.
All right, so for the team report, I have what was provided to you, but then I also got another list of things that I'm going to share with you. So the first thing is, I put that in the report. I would like to thank the town staff and the board for supporting me through an unexpected absence for almost 2 weeks. It definitely has been appreciated. It hasn't gone unnoticed, so thank you for that. The other part that I want to say is that this is his last meeting. Thank you for being a great chair last year.
Thank you.
Annual town meeting is coming up. It's going to copies of the town warrant that you can have the town office. It's all available on the website along with all of the other supporting documents. Any questions so far? Okay. So the next thing is, so historically in the month of July and August, the board goes down to 1 meeting a month. And so I want to allow the board the opportunity to make that decision tonight to see if that's something you're interested in doing, in which case we looked at the dates and July 12th and August 16th would be the recommended dates for that. Or do you want to continue doing 2 meetings?
I'll make a motion. We have 1 meeting on July 12th, 1 select board meeting on July 12th, and 1 select board meeting on August 16th.
There's a second.
I'll second it.
All right, any comment on that?
I don't know. I think we need 2 meetings a month personally, but that's me. I'm new to this, so.
All right, any other discussion on that? All right, Mark.
Normally, I would agree. I think Carol brings up a valid point, but July is a very enjoyable month for me at least, and some of these meetings are interrupting, not enjoying.
Got it.
From the town perspective, it allows us to catch up and transfer the budget from 1 year to the next, so not having that one extra meeting actually makes a difference. For the town to prepare.
And just very quickly, if something did come up, we could suggest a meeting and post it.
Yep, it just needs to be posted 3 business days in advance and the meeting could be held.
All right, any comments from the public? All right, all in favor? All right. Not voting. I'm not gonna be here, so.
I could still vote.
All right, on to the next thing. And so I received a communication from Virginia and Michael Justine, and Virginia is in the audience. They're the owners of 44 James Road. They requested to meet with 2 board members. They specified Mark and Carol to discuss the park situation and the dune erosion down at the front of their property down in Sandy Point. I told her that I would pass the message along to you to see if you would be comfortable with proceeding with her recommendation, or if you'd rather that those discussions take in a public meeting.
You too. Mark?
I had a quick conversation with Virginia, who's right here in the front of the audience, and her husband, she asked my opinion. I suggested that possibly we could consider appointing, directing 2 select board members and the town administrator to meet with them about their questions and concerns about the access activity and parking activity on James Road. So that's how that sort of started with our conversations. I would be willing to be one of those members, knowing that area and the history of the area, and I know that at least 1 or 2 fishermen have also spoken with the Caspies. So I think probably we could have a conversation or 2, come back with recommendation of direction for both parties' interests.
Carol?
I'm fine doing that if that's what the board would like us to do. I too share the concern about the increased erosion from the vehicle traffic on the dunes. I was down there the other day, and it's more significant than it was last fall, so. And that's a coastal barrier resource beach, just like Indian Point. So it has special protections and requirements.
You talked a little about it. Can you repeat that? I didn't hear what you said.
I said that I am also concerned about the erosion on the beach and the dunes.
Yeah,
I'm fine with that. Good, that's
we need a motion to appoint them or? Okay, good with that? We're appointing Mark and Carol.
So I will send out an email to have you CC and coordinate a date to meet. The next thing on the list is just the communication that I was sharing with you. It was attached in the packet, and it was from a response to the letter that was sent on behalf of the town to the Department of Agriculture, Conservation and Forestry in reference to the ramp installation at Hope Island. And so I just shared the email from the individual as well. That was the response with you, and that is in the packet.
Anybody have a comment on that?
I just have a question. So no one from, it sounded like no one wrote any letters.
I didn't have any other communications other than what's in this, so I don't.
But that's what she said.
Yeah.
Permission to ask Justin, though, your question. Justin, has this wharfing out permit gone through your committee process?
No, we just received the application, I think May 30th, so we're trying to make a plan, see what we're gonna do, and I think, don't quote me, but I think our first step is going to try to do a site visit. But it's separate from.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
The next thing is, the treasurer's report, the me being absent, so much over the last couple of weeks, I've not able to complete the full treasurer's report. In the packet, I did include the revenue on the expense report. And then I hope to have the treasurer's report complete for June 21st. Do you have any questions as far as what you saw? Or any concerns in what I shared with you? I also received the Machia Savings Bank statement after compiling this packet, and so that's something that will also be available on the 21st.
Mark, no concern. My question is the percentage that has been expended accurate on the end of each?
Yeah, so it should be close to accurate. This included the current warrants that you have. We do get bills on a daily basis, so we already have a stack of bills that aren't accounted in this. But all in all, with the exception of the legal department, all of the other departments look like they're under the expected expenditure.
Yeah, no, it looks good. If I may comment on one division on page 4, public services looks pretty good at 72.34%. And my point to that comment is, I think we're going to have a new tractor coming sometime maybe in July or August or something. And I was hoping that we could look at an attachment still that would prep and treat the dirt roads.
The good news is that we looked at the current budget and there were some areas where it hasn't been spent to as much as we anticipated, and so we in the current warrant have purchased a grader in this budget for the tractor that's going to be coming in July.
Purchase what?
The grader, I believe it was that they wanted.
Okay, you know what? That's been
Like we bought for years.
To help grade the roads.
okay, thank you.
And then with the tractor will come a sweeper and a few other things that have to come at the.
So,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I won't keep this going, but weren't we thinking about a power rake at one point, or was I misunderstanding that?
I'd have to check with Public Works.
Thank you.
I think power rate would be good for that.
Yeah.
So do I understand correctly, because this is pretty current through May, say the end of May?
Yes.
And then, the contingency, we have, do I read it correctly, $800 left in the contingency?
In the contingency, there is $9,800 that is a balance.
So maybe I'm reading this wrong.
So what you're looking
Is
at
that
is,
line 8,300?
where are you? Yeah, so on page 9, not the top
Yep.
section, 8,300, yep.
So,
Current month, $550 was spent, year to date was 4,100, and there was 9,800 left to expend.
on contingent, am I looking at the wrong thing?
Where they bring on.
I'm on page 9.
$806.
So is there $806 left as the balance on the contingency?
Where are you seeing $806?
Right under,
Oh,
right under.
no,
That's
that's
for
for
electricity.
previous page.
That's for electricity to take.
Okay,
Oh, sorry.
so where is it?
So if you're looking at, so on page 9, see where it says 8,300 contingency, down on the, in the bold, net profit and loss, 14,513.50.
Oh, I'm reading the wrong line.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so-
Because that was concerning to me. Okay, I got it.
And I will provide more detailed information about where the exact numbers stand when we get to the motion setting.
It's not as big a concern. And then on the school budget, is that current as of the end of May too?
That's current, according to the information that has been provided by the school ordinance.
Any other questions?
Right.
So a few things that have been added that I was gonna share under communications, but they all kind of fall under one or the other. So broadband, we did receive from the main bond bank the full $725,000 remaining for the broadband project, which is good news because we don't have to worry about splitting up multiple loans over the next 20 years, so we want it. The CMP poll attachment agreement was finally finalized and that got sent and that's done. We did receive the agreement from Consolidated. That has been since sent to the town attorney. It came back today. It's being sent to Consolidated, and then once that comes back from them, it will come to you for final approval. So there's finally steps that are being made on that. Dredging, I received a call this morning. They are in the process of picking out a contractor, and so they know with us having a town meeting coming up on Saturday, they're hoping to have a quote to us by Friday at the latest. So come town meeting, I will have a pretty good number as far as what we're looking for. I couldn't get a exact number to share, but it sounded promising that there was no additional funds that were going to be needed. So I think we're going to be pleasantly happy with the information that we provide from them. Any questions on that?
Just remind me when they would do the dredging, if they select in the fall, right? Okay.
And it would be like a 2-3 day project. I heard back from John Wanda for the Indian Island survey. I have not responded to him, but it was just, I figured it'd be worth sharing instead of waiting 2 more weeks. He did suggest a topographic survey for the intersections of 3 roads, Indian Point, Cottage, and North Road, and the cost would be between about $4,500 and $5,500. And that wouldn't be able to start, he wouldn't be able to start that until August. So if you guys are okay with it, we can put it on the next agenda for approval, and they can put it on the list if that's something that you're still interested in. Stonework update, I've been in contact with Weston and Sampson. I was expected to hear back some dates from them for when they can meet. I actually emailed Carol and Bob today. They are hoping to come out here on June 29th to meet with us and have a preliminary meeting and then start the process. And so I also received a kind of the full contract that you authorized me to sign, but I figured just for transparency and for people to see it, I'll put it on the next agenda so that way you can see the details. And the last thing is Cousins Island. I had followed up with Nat Tupper about the placement, at the end of the work where there's the board has been there. So the plan is to place a steel plate over the gap to carry through the summer. In the fall, have a permanent solution. When they have those cost estimates, Nat Tupper will reach out to me to discuss using a joint capital reserve account to help with the payment of those. And he also provided me balance, which it's like $479,000, I think, is in there. And so I can provide that information to you, email it or something. He was kind of showing me a spreadsheet of it, so.
I just saw there's quite a few boards too on the actual work they're doing.
Yeah.
The whole thing in the whole.
Right.
Any comments on that?
And the last thing that I have is I do have a pre-planned vacation, so I'm planning to be off from the 9th up to the 16th. I will be coming in and working on the agenda, and with Bo having this be the last meeting, Jen will be stepping in as vice chair to work on the next agenda with us. So I'll send out an email, and if it's an emergency, I'll obviously be available, but I'm gonna try to take some time off. So. plan time for that. Any questions?
Carol?
Just, because I'm not familiar with the stone, the joint agreement, is that a written agreement somewhere that we can, because I'm fine splitting the cost if that's appropriate, but I don't really know what the details of that agreement are.
It is, to my knowledge, an agreement with Yarmouth and Schwig, and both municipalities put money into a joint reserve account, and Yarmouth keeps track of it. So we put, I think, $24,000 in
Right.
the common budget.
But is it a written agreement that we should review? I mean, I'd like to see a copy. Can you just send me a copy so I know what it is?
Anything else?
So the other is the different department reports. If you have any specific questions about those.
So, I have one thing for the public works. Chuck stopped me, and asked about, Mark had made a motion in the last meeting about filling potholes. And, especially the culvert or the ditch over here. And he told me it's like, they both tried to put some material in there prior, and it's not sticking to what's there. He's looking for, some his thoughts are that, either try to fill the hole as it is, or cut the pavement back and still put it, put it thicker so that it's on better. Or wait till the whole thing is repaired, it's all at once. So I told him this. Stop, and then I would talk to you guys as far as, instead of wasting time and material to look for some kind of direction, if you guys want to just fill in or not, so. What would you like, Mark?
So my opinion, the ultimate goal is to at some point replace that culvert with a permanent repair. And so that if we decide to final surface the stretch of road, there's no bad pipes on it.
Yeah.
That's the ultimate goal. If that goal can't be accomplished for quite a while, my preference at least, and others can speak for themselves, and that's why I made the motion, is to temporarily fill it. And, there's many ways to do it. You can just put the coal back in, hope it's thick, you can get some bonding agent, which is called tack, and you can put that in and then put it in, or you can cut some out and make it more jagged and put some in. So I guess my preference is to have it filled, at least temporarily, realizing that we may lose that amount of coal patches. Small risk to the taxpayer, we already own the coal patch. So it doesn't sound like the permanent repair is going to get done until fall. Is that probably accurate?
If the easement agreements could be lined up.
Yeah. So that's my thoughts.
So just fill the crack with the coal patch. Okay. Anybody else?
My expertise is not in road.
Yeah, me neither.
So you just want them to keep filling it until further notice.
Yeah, it hasn't really been filled. It was crack sealed way back when we did the crack sealing and they put a tiny bit in there, but it really hasn't been filled. So I think there's little risk to filling it,
Huh?
to the.
Yeah. So let Public Works know and just patch it in.
I do have one more quick question that relates to that same area. Where do we think we stand on deciding whether we're going to finish pursuing a drainage easement with Melconian and adding another culvert, or having another plan with that stretch of road? Because we never really got back to that.
As a town, we were waiting, Mike Robinson had a survey done of the abutting property.
Right.
And that got sent to tax map updates, and we were waiting for that to come back, and then it was gonna get sent to legal. But because of the shortage of funds, that's one of the things that I've held back on until the new year. In lieu of, the
Yeah.
over expenditure, and so I'm hoping come July, we can start revisiting that agreement. Because what the attorney needs to look at is to see if we had something that was good enough on that side. But this side, we were gonna need to pay surveys on private properties, and so Mike's survey was hopefully going to be enough. And now the tax maps are updated. Legal might be able to have enough information to draft out an agreement, but I haven't sent that to them because of that.
So again, the only thing that really affects is whether we decide we're going to final surface the stretch of South Road from Roy Hill to the inn at some point. Thank you.
Yeah, we don't have it in the budget for this year.
To resurface it, we actually do, it's $138,000 or something like that. From, it's a double chip seal, what we have in there proposed as of right now. That's changed.
Okay. Any other comments on that? All right. Any comments on any other of the other departments? All right, moving on to regular business, 23-050, authorize the town administrator to pay Jensen Beard bill for professional services from the Selectmen's contingency fund. Here,
Yes, so there's one to Jensen Beard, which is the town attorney, and then another one is Bernstein and Kerr, which is the attorney representing Board of Adjustment Appeals.
We're voting on here.
So Jensen Beard is the $3,727.81, because the $4,500 that's in the bill was previously paid. And when I contacted the attorney, I had our bookkeeper look into why this kept on coming up, because the last couple of months it kept on coming up, and I knew we had paid it. And then come to find out, we paid that, but then we had a credit, and so that credit is going to be applied to the May bill, so it's going to knock our May bill down, so we're going to owe less for the May bill than we would have originally, so it's going to put us in a better position financially to have money. But it's that $3,700 number that we need a motion for to authorize to pay that bill.
Out of contingency,
Selectmen's contingency, correct?
I make a motion that we pay the Jensen Bard bill for $3,712.50 out of the Selectmen's contingency.
That's wrong.
It is.
372781.
Next page.
Oops, sorry. That's okay. $3,727.81. That was.
Second,
Any discussion on that?
I guess I just didn't understand what you just said, Vika. So I get that this bill total is $37,2781. Okay. But the 4,500 and the balance, what you said is we have a credit. So do we pay the 4,500 twice, or I didn't quite understand?
$4,500 a couple months ago, but the way that it was billed, we ended up paying an old bill twice. And so rather than sending us a check, I asked that they credit us for the May bill. So our May bill is going to be the $1,300 range. So for the month of June, it's going to put us in a position of having close to $4,600 in contingency that will be available to cover the legal fees. So depending on how much.
But we didn't, did we actually approve those funds? from contingency? You know, in other words, we paid it twice,
That was from previous when it was paid
All
out
out
of
of-
legal.
all out of
legal.
our legal budget
Yes, and
legitimately.
nothing, none of that was for
Okay.
contingency.
Got it. That's all, that was my question.
So it's, if all goes well, I'm not sure what the bill would be. I think we're gonna get one for, Board of Adjustment and Appeals for any representation from, the previous one. But we have a warrant article for town meeting to vote $13,000, which was definitely in the higher end of things, looking at what some of the Board of Adjustment Appeals costs have cost us, not knowing what this previous one, which directions it could have taken. So we might be in a position where we might not need that full extent if it develops. Which is good news.
All right, any other comments? Comments on the public? All right, all in favor? So, next item, 23-051, authorize the town administrator to pay Ernst & Young bill for professional services from the Selectmen's contingency fund. And it would be $513.50.
I make a motion that we pay, a bill for $513.50 for Bernstein and Sure, out of the Selectmen's contingency.
Second,
Any comments on that? Any comments from the public? All in favor? All right. Moving on. 23-052 to hear an update on the power company notice of violation. You want to start with that?
So I will be very honest. From the last meeting, the following day, I was absent for an extended period of time. So you had suggested that, it's a 30-day extension that you need to be sent verbally to the code enforcement officer. By the time I returned to follow up on that, that time frame had exceeded. So I don't know the details of that. What I shared with you in the package was the result of Bo coming to me and saying that, there was a selectman who was interested in putting this on this week's agenda. And so I compiled any information that I had received and I put it on it. And then I learned that there was communication from the town attorney sending information to Jim Butler, which I just learned about yesterday. So I might not be able to have a lot of answers as far as where things stand.
All right.
And some of you might have more than I know, because I know that maybe other people had more communications than I did when I was absent.
All right. Any comments?
Guess we're just at a point where, what's the next step? What's going on?
Yeah, I'm not clear where we are.
And maybe Jim can answer that.
So again, you know where we stand as far as the notice of violation.
Sure, so I've printed out all the emails because there has been a lot of communication back and forth. But essentially, the timeline, Natalie initiated an email with me indicating that the select board reached out to her in regards to sending a new letter to Mr. Fowler regarding the notice of violation. So with that, Natalie and I have been the county administrator on that, and we're working on a new draft. That's the typical, if we're not getting the results that have been asked for in the original notice of violation, then we send another final notice of violation before we bring the matter to court. So that's kind of what Natalie was being directed by this board to do. So we were working with her on that. Working backwards from there, I do have some correspondence from Mr. Fowler, who will be here tonight as well. And he indicated that he came to the May 17th or 18th meeting. And he did indicate to me via telephone that he had 30 days in result of attending that meeting. So I don't know if that was ever memorialized that evening. I do have the minutes that was here, but it doesn't really say that if it was granted 30 days or not. But that's what was insinuated to me, that he had been given 30 days. So, as far as where it stands, I mean, our next step for town legal, is to, issue a new notice of violation once the time frame expires. I guess I need clarification on, did the town grant 30 days, or are we already over the 14 days from the original notice of violation? This is, I guess, where we need clarification. So, also additionally, Mr. Fowler has been communicating with me, and I believe the email that you have was a result, as Mr. Fowler, I believe, came to a couple of members of the board, explaining that he has an arborist license. So I was asked to do some research in that. And that email wasn't really what my opinion was. It was more of what he has for a license and what our ordinances say, and how he's licensed for the work he does. I did forward that to town legal previously as well, and now they indicated that it's a moot point because Mr. Fowler did not bring that forward as reasoning during his appeal timeframe. So we're still moving forward with the notice of violation, and that arborist license conversation isn't something that the town is going to entertain from the legal standpoint. So, did you have a question?
Yeah, so can you just remind me? Because it feels like there's something I missed maybe, but the initial notice of violation went out when?
So the initial notice of violation, bear with me for 1 second. So November 17th was when the Board of Adjustments, so 2022, is when the Board of Adjustments and Appeals issued their findings of fact. Then from there, the NOV went out.
January.
I believe it was January 9th.
From you, right?
Initially went out.
So January 9th, CEO sent out the notice of violation.
And then May 9 was the most recent one, which on May 17th, when I came to the board and said there had been communication, at that point in the discussion, the board said, let's wait to see what happens within the 30 days. And you made it clear that if the extension, if Mr. Fowler was looking for an extension, that it needed to be, through email communication with the code enforcement officer, but I never had the opportunity to relay that because the next morning I was unexpectedly absent for almost 2 weeks.
And if I recall, the board's role in this whole thing was to ask the CEO to clarify sort of the performance requirements in terms of the notice of violation. In other words, you're the person issuing the notice of violation, not the Board of Selectmen, correct?
Correct.
And so we asked for further clarification for the property owner so they would understand what's required. And that's when I believe we had a 2-week period of compliance that could potentially be extended, right? That's what we said, I thought. Is that right?
Yeah, that sounds accurate. And I believe early May, we sent out the clarification.
Okay, just trying to get clear on where we're at.
Yeah, and the clarification, because of the Board of Appeals finding the facts didn't give the actual performance action we were looking for, is why we need to come back to you folks for what the wishes were of the town.
And I'm sorry to ask this question if I should know it, but I just want to be clear on the opinion from town attorney Natalie that the qualification or not in the agriculture category was a moot point because of the non application within what time period was that? What would that be? What time period would that appeal time period be? Was it 2 weeks, 30 days?
So the initial from the Board of Adjustments, findings of facts, 30 days from there.
30 days from the appeal board.
Correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Well, and I just want to correct or understand something you just said, Jim, because you said that the Board of Appeals wasn't specific, so you came to the Board of Selectmen for clarification. But that's really not our role in this matter. I mean, we did ask you to clarify in this letter of May 9th to the property owner. I mean, that's the CEO's role, correct?
Well, I'm pretty sure we had an executive session and discussed some of the legal parameters around that letter. So I mean, some of that I think is for the executive session, but my role is interpretation. What's difficult is when a board makes a decision. In this case, it was that I did not act on a complaint. It essentially took away my enforcement power and gave it to the Board of Adjustments. So in their findings of fact, they weren't specific. So I think we were advised, we were heading down the path of a consent agreement potentially, and that's when town legal got involved. So, I mean, part of that, when another board makes a decision that's in conflict with the CEO, then another discussion has to happen with legal input from the selectmen. It's really necessary.
It was my understanding that the Board of Adjustment and Appeals, that they were pretty specific because they looked back at the ordinances and it didn't line up. So that their findings of fact were, basically supporting the ordinances, and that seemed pretty cut and dry.
It was specific in what they found for their decision on that it needed site plan review, that they'd have to go for site plan review if they wanted to continue to operate, but it didn't give specifics in the finding of facts of deadlines and specifics of removal of buildings, removal of how many vehicles, and kind of the action items. But they were specific, so I agree with what you're saying, but
Those action items, and doesn't that again go back to the ordinances as far as?
well, an example that I've used for this is, we don't have, like if this was a temporary sawmill, we have provisions in our order to talk about temporary sawmills and performance standards that we can utilize and I can enforce. For this one, it's, again, many conversations we're having with town legal on, all right, what can the town require legally as far as what a person can have on a vacant piece of land? And,
In the residential zone.
correct. So town legal, and I think it was on those calls, and we had a few Zoom meetings to discuss this, is we had to be kind of specific on what the ask was specifically. So, it's that's not a decision that I can just come to on my own when there's other boards involved and there's no specific ordinance sections that cover, what a person can have at a piece of land.
So I guess tonight, where are we at? So I see the very specific requirements in this notice of violation, and have those been met?
Well, I think tonight was for some clarification as well, on was Mr. Fowler granted 30 days at that May 17 or 18 meeting? I'm not sure, I wasn't here. But from there, the wheels are already in motion for a new NOV, which because I just got a draft from the attorney today. So I guess we need to know when we don't want to send a premature notice of violation. If he was given 30 days, he has a few more days.
Right.
It was, sorry. Go ahead.
So the notice of violation was sent out on May 9th. So let's say the 30 days was granted, whether it was or it wasn't. If it was, then there's 2 days left. The specifics of the notice of violation was to remove all equipment related to tree and lawn business, including all trucks, tractors, wood cutting and splitting equipment, lawn care equipment and fuel, and to remove the top of the barn. So, I mean, my recommendation would be in lieu of, I'll take the fault of it. I became absent unexpectedly. I couldn't follow through as far as any written, because you made the clear direction that it needs to be written. So there wasn't a chance to communicate that. Let's say that 30 days was granted. he has 2 days to go and to come bring into compliance to have all those 3 things specifically done. If not, then, I printed out this email from Natalie, I was, CC'd on yesterday afternoon, so it was the first time I had seen it. And I'm happy to read it to you, to have her, I didn't get a chance to forward to you, I'm sorry. To kind of get you to an idea of what her recommendation would be going forward, if, let's say, in 2 days, he doesn't bring it. Do you want me to read the letter?
Mhm.
All right, so she said, and this was a letter on May 26th to Jim. The select board has requested that I reach out to you concerning the status of the letter to Mr. Fowler and whether he's coming into compliance. Apparently, Mr. Fowler has told you that he is doing, what he is doing is agricultural legal under ordinance, and that he doesn't have to make any changes. This, of course, is not in compliance with the decision that Board of Adjustment appeals on the downward appeal. He cannot challenge the decision now by claiming a new use because he was required to bring all issues before the board as part of this. At this point, because he didn't approach the board's decision, he didn't appeal, excuse me, the board's decision, the town could bring the enforcement action and he would be limited to arguing over the relief granted to the town and the amount of penalties and attorney fees. But he cannot challenge the underlying determination that the use is not allowed. The select board feels, and I agree, that if you need to send another letter to Mr. Fowler about the needs to comply with your earlier letter, I think they would still prefer not to go forward if possible, but you can't ignore the prior letter. I'm happy to work and put together a letter and getting it out. And so I think that's based on this letter, Jim had followed up and said, you know, can you help draft up? That's where she started drafting up a follow-up letter in the event that this wasn't brought into compliance within the time frame. So I think at this point, based on that information, you as a board could decide if, you know, the 14 days was the time, or if you felt like in lieu of things, the 30 days was granted, in which case there's 2 days to bring that in compliance. If not, move forward with whatever your choices for next action items.
Yeah.
I think that one of the problems we're having is we as a board, we are trying to, you know, follow these difficult and confusing rules and regulations and everything. But we waited for Mr. Fowler to come forth with an appeal from the Board of Adjustment and Appeals to appeal their decision. And we never received that. So then we had to go forward with what do we do next? So we sent out the letter. And then we waited for him to ask for an extension. And we never got anything in writing or that I'm aware of or verbally. And so I think we're just back at, yeah, this is a crappy thing to deal with, but we're in a position where, as a board, this is why we're here, and we need to, as for the community, go by the rules. That's how I see it.
Can I make one point? So on, just on May 12th, an email was received from Joe Fowler, not asking for an extension, but to meet with the board. And then, I had an in-person conversation with his sisters where they asked me verbally for the extension. And, I said, you know, yes, you should be fine with the 30 days if you don't feel like, and then I shared that information with you on the 17th, and that's where you requested that it really should be done in writing. And I didn't have the chance to follow through with that. So I think in line with what your expectations were, I don't have anything in writing, but verbally, my understanding is, you know, that was provided. So I think
Thanks
it's
for clarity.
All right. Jim, what did, I don't have the letter that the lawyer sent you. For something, I don't have that with me. Did she state anything about him presenting new facts after the facts? Does that do anything to the notice of violation?
She and, I believe Vika read the gist of what you're asking,
Yeah.
and she insinuated, the attorney insinuated that, if that was the case, then that should have been part of the appeal from the Board of Adjustment Appeals initially. So, you know, she indicated that at this point, it shouldn't, I think she was saying if it goes to court, that may be Mr. Fowler's position, and you could hear that at that time, it may impact penalties and whatnot, but she indicated that we're not legally required to open up a larger appeal window, or essentially we hear what you have to say, but this still stands. It's kind of where it now left with us.
Okay. All right, any other questions from the board? Vika, you have something to add? All right, now I'll open it up to the floor.
Yeah, if I could just read an email I wrote up this stuff to get it out there. All right. Well, you guys know I've been here for a long time. I was here before someone. I just want, this is just what I have coming off my chest here. I just wanted to remind people, this all started from a neighbor complaint. A neighbor that smiled and waved at me while they were filing a complaint. They have refused to talk to me throughout this. We asked for a mediator to sit down. So at the end of the day, I truly don't know what I ever did to them. The complaint, a legal operation of a business in a residential zone, and having a temporary structure up and on. Okay, I will fight this. My business is myself, and I travel to people's houses. I provide my service. This is laughable, and it will go away. Because as I travel around the island and the state of Maine, that is what you see, small businesses. That are the backbone of this company, their equipment on their property, and for structures. There has been temporary structures up since I arrived here 18 years ago. I was recently informed it is not the town's job to drive around and enforce these laws that they are enforcing on me, which is knowingly to do so is a job misconduct. It is unprofessional. When this first meeting happened, the board had already made up their mind. I sat here and said I was agriculture over and over and over again, that I was exempt from the law, so I don't know how I did consent it. I said it to you guys 5 times, I'm agriculture, I'm exempt. If your problem was with my sister, the business she was running out of there, that's a complete different violation of it. It's not, it should have never come to me in the first place. That's why I didn't file an appeal. An appeal to what? In your law, it says I'm exempt. I stood up here that day in front of the appeals board and told them I'm an exempt company. If you come and talk to me, I would have gladly, if I would have known I could build a garage in there, I would have tore that little piece of crap building down and built a garage, but I was told I couldn't. So, like, I've always come into compliance. If he came over to my place, I had the place cleaned up before he got there. Right now, all my stuff's lined up. I'm out. I'm done. What am I fighting for? A piece of crap land on street? If you're gonna get treated this way, instead of getting talked to like a human being, like, it's ridiculous. So I'm in compliance. My stuff, I've seen it all lined up over there. And I'm out. Like, that's my decision. I don't need you to make a decision about how I proceed with my life. I'm done with this. That's how you get.
I have a question. Does it say a small business in the residential area?
Yeah.
Okay. How do you justify doing that when there are so many small businesses on forbid in your homes, in your yards? Does this set precedents? Pretty soon we won't be allowed to have our boats and our traps in our yards. We won't have our carpenter businesses in our yards. None of that. No plumbing businesses. All of that's gonna be taken away because they're all small businesses in residential yards. Now, how are you gonna address them?
This all started with a complaint.
So it takes a complaint to shut all your small businesses down,
No.
that's that complaint,
It's,
every track, every boat, every plumbing business, my relatives. If you can do that and set precedent on the bid, you're really asking for a lot of trouble here, not from me, but from anybody that wants to complain.
Well, I complained, and it's right in the ordinance that you can have traps, and if you have a home, you can have a business. And there's no home there, and I listened to it for years, I asked kindly, and I have text proof. He sent me a long note and by text on Christmas Eve, and I said, call me anytime, we'll talk about it. He just stood up and said, I didn't want to talk to him, so there's a bunch of lies, I don't care anymore, I was trying to prove a point. I follow the rules, everyone in this room is essential and follows the rules. Why does he not have to? That was it. And now here we are 6 months later.
I'm asking a question because I want to know what kind of precedent this is gonna set for everything.
Eric,
In my opinion, the precedent it sets is that we're upholding the zoning ordinance that we have. And as Justin just said, if you have a home, if you're a resident and you have a business in your home, that is allowed in the zoning ordinance.
Okay.
But because that is in a residential area, but is not a residence, there's no residence on the property. And Jim, you're the code enforcement officer, so jump in if you'd like. But this is a non-home, non-residential business in a residential zone, which does not comply with our zoning. So it doesn't set a precedent for the plumbing businesses, all these other businesses that operate out of people's properties where they live. So in terms of that question, it's different than
That
those
makes me
homes.
feel better, I was getting.
I understand, and I think it hasn't been clear, and I think there were many places, all I will say as a comment is there were many opportunities to resolve this in a different way.
Good.
If I could offer a couple words, I'm affected by the situation every single day. Affects my wife, we can't sleep, it's an emotional distress. And it's at this point almost harassment. I feel like there's a lot of folks in the town and folks that should be upholding our ordinance that over the 4 years. I mean, this started 2 months after I moved here 4 years ago. And for the whole time, it's been going on, growing. And we've been fighting it for a couple of years now, it feels like. So anyway, I'm on the planning board, I'm an architect, I'm pro-business, I'm pro-development, I'm pro trying to make things work out. So I think this island needs to think about an industrial park. I think it needs to think about maybe having these activities happen over by the public works and dump area where. Oh, well, I'm just saying, there's an area that these activities are happening right now by public works. And, that area could be expanded, fenced off, and those cars that are parked there could have a lease area and some other leased area, and you could work it out on town land as a select board. And be thinking about ways that we can accommodate uses that shouldn't be next to housing. I shouldn't have to worry about fuel dumps when people have to get equipment off the island 150 feet from my well. That's just a thing. I don't have to worry about people not having bathroom facilities. And there's 5, 6 people working there. So I feel like those things could be accommodated, maybe on town-owned property and some sort of bike-park situation. It could be the same sort of, shredded wheat area that they're working in now. Half acre each tenant, and you could have a Quonset hut that's, got some sort of poly barrier, and is thinking about storm drainage and thinking about contaminant control and thinking about all those things that it ought to be thinking about as a legitimate development. And, it could happen. So you know, there's places for this, and there's ideas out there, and I think there is a chance to make something happen, but that opportunity was never taken over 4 years now. And this is a decision between a legal business and a couple families that might not be here anymore. So it might be too late. I mean, this has been going on. And it's taken a very strong emotional toll, let me tell you. And anyway, I think everybody ought to think about what's been going on for 4 years. And where this could have been adjudicated, like the damn legal sawmill over at Stuck Place. Done. Don't tell me it's not a sawmill. Piles of logs getting sawn all day. Thank you. All right, thank you. All right.
I just wanted to say to Patty, if I may, Patty, that was a good question, and I asked it at one point about myself. I asked Jim Butler, our code officer, am I not in compliance being a carpenter and keeping my stuff in my yard, my staging, my ladders, my trucks? And the answer was just exactly what Carol said, I guess. It's allowed in our ordinance if you're a resident. I'm not sure I understood the answer or felt that it was fair application, but that's the answer that I got.
Yeah, I just was shocked that that whatever's going on is going on. I didn't know it affects like everybody,
Hmm.
like all these small businesses around here, or is it just one particular person? What two? In the system.
Been around here 80 years. I was a member of the first planning board. People on the first planning board had, I think, some pretty good ideas about how shooting was then, as we became our own town, and would be in the future. And one of the feelings was that we would be as tolerant of our neighbors as possible. And that led into a situation where, and I'm not sure if it was written into the legally written into the ordinances or not, but we felt that any kind of limited business could be tolerated in a residential zone, seeing as how we have an exemption for fishing gear, which is on residential property all over the island. And we felt it was only fair, seeing as how we're all neighbors here, we're all trying to get along with each other, that we be as tolerant as possible. And I honestly, I'm trying to be constructive and not too critical. But I do have some criticism. For instance, an ordinance is being enforced to the letter of the law. You find lawyers and you heard code enforcement officers talk about what's to be done, what's not to be done, what side on it. I'd like to see us get back to the point where we value good, honest, hardworking people who come here and want to make a contribution to the town. And I consider the Powers, all of them, as my friends. And I think they're honest, and I think they made a valuable contribution to the town, and they provide a good service. I just not afford it. I can use it. I can afford to buy wood from there. I heat my house almost altogether with wood. Thank goodness, because I cannot afford to buy oil on big. So I heat with wood, and they have used me really well. The nice people. I just honestly, I think that we got to get back. This island has got to get back to the point. My point is
that we need to be a hell of a lot more tolerant of each other than what we do. Whether we got a dirt pit, or we got a lobster business, or we got a carpenter business, we got a, like in my yard, you got a mechanic worker there. He's paying real good attention to this. What's going on here with this situation and the legalities of it all. And he's ready to pull up stakes and leave. There's gonna be a lot of long faces around here when the cars don't run. And Clint can only do about a dozen a day. There's gonna be a lot of long faces around here. And I'm really sick about this. I've put up with an intolerable situation. Me, my neighbors, my brother. An intolerable situation because the town refuses to come up with a noise ordinance. I put up with having loud noises coming from the slow bell and the hotel. And I don't sleep very well, just like his wife doesn't sleep very well when the chains are around. But I haven't complained. I haven't complained to the town, I haven't complained to the code enforcement officer, or the board is in charge of coming up with the ordinance. When I was on it, board, I tried to get them to deal with a noise ordinance, and they would not do it. It still hasn't been done. Simply because everybody likes to go over the slow bell and yell just as loud as they can to try to talk over the music that's playing, and I don't know how many goddamn decibels over there. And when I call up and ask him if he won't be a little bit tolerant of this neighbor who fought in the Second World War, an old man fought in the Second World War, Hedge Road to Hutch Road, all across France. And I asked him to turn the music down a little bit. They did that night, but the next night, it was just the same as it's always been. So what I'm saying is, if you're gonna enforce ordinances, the letter of the law, you damn well better be enforcing all of them. Or be tolerant. That's my feeling about it. And I don't think, in this situation, I don't think people being tolerant. And I'm sorry, that's just my feeling.
All right. All right. Which one wants to go first?
Ernie, I've known you all my life. And if you think that us as a board don't have a difficult job with this, that we don't want to keep, people that are coming to the island to do services to the island, we all need them. And it's a really fine line with certain things, because you have to take into consideration what people complain about and what people are doing wrong. And we have bent over backwards, I feel like, to try to work with him and understand what his needs are. And he's not giving us anything that we can work with. He just keeps saying that we're treating him badly, and he kind of goes off and he just walked out of the room. And that's how he's been working. Yes, he's an incredibly hard worker, but he's got to do some things differently. And you know what? If his piece of property was tucked into some, quiet road somewhere that nobody saw him, it wouldn't be a problem. And I think that we are doing the best that we can, and I really think that, yes, this island needs to be tolerable of a lot of things. And we would be having a different conversation if Jim had applied for, to build a house out here, like he talked about, however, 18 years ago or whatever. Because he would be a resident and it would be different.
I honestly think that this place is changing. Enough to be good. I'd like to see it go back to the old ways. And people would help along of each other's activities. People probably get pissed off when I run my chainsaw all the time, which I do a lot. I cut a lot of I just run to air wrench all the time, makes a lot of noise. A slow bell on any given night that they have music over there, plays music so loud that I can hear it. That's loud, because I'm deaf. I can hear the hotel. I can hear the music. That doesn't bother me quite as much as over the slow bell. The people who owned what we call Uncle Tom's Cabin right across the street from where I used to live, my brother's house, used to rent their property. They used to rent that in the summer, and their summer rentals complained so bad because they put the kids to bed and they couldn't come get them to go to sleep because the music was so loud. And they asked the owner if he just tone it down. Nobody wants to stop it, just tone it down to a reasonable amount. Didn't happen. Still doesn't happen. And I guarantee you this summer, when they get playing over there, it's gonna be just as loud as it was last summer. Guaranteed. So if you're gonna be intolerant with one guy that happens to be on this damn rock, this hot ledge, making a living down here, performing a service, you better start enforcing all the goddamn ordinances. What about all of these, storage units that are coming in? Let's say illegal, you're not supposed to have this stuff, we're not supposed to have trailers on the back. I'm not complaining, don't get me wrong, I want to be tolerant of what people do. That's why I came up here tonight and spoke my piece. I haven't graced the town, select board with my presence in quite some time, but and if you'll be tolerant and let me continue, I would say that I think this power is being shared on. That's the way I see it. So if you're gonna enforce one ordinance, enforce them all. And if we're all gonna have to come right to the letter of the law, then goddamn it, we'll all have to come to the letter of the law. But don't jump all over one guy and let somebody else get away with murder, get away with the same thing, a noise ordinance, intolerable noise. My brother complained about it, I complained about it. All the people that were in close proximity put up with it. We put up with it. And it's for the reason that we're trying to be tolerant.
Like Travis, I'm currently a member of the planning board. Ernie, I'm not playing to you or anybody else, but if somebody wants, we meet once a month. And rarely does anybody come. But if there is a need for discussion about any ordinance that exists, if there is a desire to craft an ordinance that's not in place, that's the place to start. Come to a planning board meeting, express your concerns, get it rolling there, advocate for it as part of the process. The other thing I'd like to mention is the term site plan review. I stood up during the November Board of Adjustment Appeals because I felt that many people misunderstand site plan review. Within our zoning ordinance, yes, it comprises 7 pages, all right? But having done it probably on this island more than anybody else, I can tell you it's not too painful. Because all you are is presenting your activities to a public forum All right, describing what you intend to do, how you plan to respect your neighbors, how you plan to respect the community. And you ask the board. You ask them to grant you permission to do what you just declared. During the November meeting, I stood up and I reminded everybody, okay, of a whole host of home occupations. From masseuse to lobster sales to galleries, okay, up and down this island, they have put forward site plan review packages. And they have been supported by this town. Right? I can't tell you all the uses, you can go back and confirm it yourself, but almost to a T, they've been supported. The burden is always on the landlord. I disagree with Travis, that doesn't mean I'm right, he's wrong. I don't think it's the town's job to help anybody, okay, do their business. I encourage everyone, okay, to go make a go of it yourself. In the planning board, we've heard a number of people coming to this venue, trying to propose activities on this island that are not currently in the. We try to work with them to get them to understand how to do it. It's an educational process. They have to take the risk. As business owners, entrepreneurs, home occupations, everybody's in it for themselves and their family. But the responsibility is the landowners. Right? Not the towns. The landowner, the business owner, they have to step up. The process is not burdensome, okay? And if you need help on how to craft it, or if you want advice on how to fit the rules, come to the planning board. I didn't see a few people show up with ideas. Thank you.
Thank you. Ernie, I agree with you. The shipping needs to get back to the way it is, but I look at it from a completely different perspective. Like Paul said, there's a way to go about doing this, and he never made any attempts to do that. He didn't get any permits for anything. He had an opportunity to appeal. He did not appeal. He had an opportunity. If he had taken down the shed that he knew he had to take down, what did he do? He put a new tarp over it the next day. He made no attempts to compromise or do anything to help the situation. If he took that down, got rid of the wood, it might have gone away. And the thing that I don't like is how many people on this island, and I have nothing wrong with you, are choosing someone to come down here to work over families that live here, have chosen to raise their family here. And those people are being treated terribly. And for this to take 6 months and it's still not over, in Portland, the second he started that, it would have been, he would have had a day of work. It would have been done immediately. And it's not Portland, and I don't want it to be Portland. But I don't want to see the people, we're trying to keep families here. And that's the last thing this process is trying to do.
Can I make one more comment? The point is that if you allow one type of home business, regardless of whether it's grandfathered and was always in the ordinances that we put when we established our own town. If you allow one type of exemption, which very neatly fits into a home business, and is also a nuisance, it stinks, like my lobster trap, stink. I'm over there with the chainsaw running all the time. If you allow noise so loud that people can't sleep in the neighborhood, because you have no noise ordinance, because the town refuses to act on it. Like they refuse to act on it because of full ban. People feel like they're being kicked out. And I understand why, when you feel like you're caught, you don't always act in the right, with the right attitude, like you're complaining about some of the things that social Jim did. But I just don't see it that way. I mean, I guess I'm 100 years in the rears here, and we always tolerated each other a hell of a lot better than we're doing now. this place is changing. There's new people coming here and, it seems like new people, and old people that were always here changing their attitudes about how we tolerate each other. That's my personal feeling.
I have a question, being an arborist doesn't make him exempt then, like he was saying.
It's, the problem is the fact of him being arborist should have been done during the BOA meeting. And that's just me speaking, I don't know
Doesn't make any difference.
exactly. But as it is currently, it doesn't affect the notice of violation.
My other thing is I was working with one spot, right? Travis, last summer, and I asked if I could like run on today. And he said, my house is a cash cow, and that's how I look at it. So, I don't think you intend to remain here. I don't think you intend to be here and raise your kids here at all. So to complain about this is kind of surprising.
The last 4 years.
That's last year, you said that.
I've been here for 4 years. I've been putting up with this whole time.
All right. Mark?
I'm gonna be very quick. So I'd like to address Paul's opinion that the best place to start looking at how we want to use our land on Shavik is at the planning board level. I agree with that. So today I had too brief of a conversation, quite frankly, but I had a conversation with John Wilson, who's the present chairman, I believe, of the planning board, and he asked me if I had any input, and I think I've been saying this kind of from the beginning. You know, if we have to take a closer look at what we presently have on our books for land use allowances, then we have to take a look at that. It's my opinion that there is a way to mix and match residential use and business use, but it goes back to Ernie's point about the Slow Bell Cafe. And I'm one of the ones making the music over there, and I'm very sorry about that, Ernie. I try to play you some country western so you can hear that at least. That's a joke.
Honestly, I filed no complaint.
I know that. I'm just making light of it for a second. My point
I'm
is,
just stating the fact.
my point is, I do believe that the small business and business need to exist in every community. But there has to be some give and take, and there has to be some conditions of approval is the term. When a business is approved, there are conditions attached to a business that gets approved by the planning board or the Board of Appeals if it's a special exception or a variance. And I think it's important after that, that those conditions of approval are paid attention to and followed through upon by the town that it's in. Specifically with the Slow Bell Cafe, and I don't want to talk about, you know, about that too specifically, but I have suggested extremely strongly that playing music outdoors with no containment is not the best choice for your neighborhood, because the equipment that we have nowadays, sound will carry for miles. Anytime that you play inside, like the hall, like we played a couple of Saturdays ago, that's not a problem because you're inside a building. It doesn't project. It's a good choice. So my point is, I think that this community really needs to take a harder look at, you know, I don't want to say get back to the way it was because those days have probably slipped away. But there's got to be a way to address the concerns which are very valid from both directions sometimes. And to have enough business and ability to do, I appreciate the ability to live on my property and be able to, you know, store my stuff on there not so neatly. If it was different rules, I think I would try to comply with it. But somehow it needs to work. And Jen's right, it's not, you know, it's difficult to be in this seat of responsibility, but when you're in this seat of responsibility, you try to do the best you can. Thank you.
Can I just make one small comment? If, when it gets to the point that you can't rent your property to your previous renters because you put the baby there and they can't get them to go to sleep, not talking all night, they don't appreciate the noise. But these people still don't complain. And that's my point. My point is that people try to be as tolerant as they possibly can. And the guy that lives right over here, that owns that property. And his really, I consider him a cabinet, he's a good guy. And my point is, that's my point. Try to be, we've got to be as tolerant as we possibly can, or if we're gonna enforce the goddamn laws, please enforce them right through the letter of the law on everybody. Then to start kicking people off the island that are performing a function, I mean, it's no small matter to me that I can buy wood from Jim Fowler's sister, and I can cut my oil bill in half, my heating bill in half. I'm using a renewable source of heat. I just happen to like to back my ass up to the wood stove when it gets real cold and feel the heat coming out of it. I feel like we're changing. This place is changing, and I'm sorry, David.
I would just like to kind of remind that this agenda item is about the Fowler property, and I think we've trailed off a little bit.
Yep. All right. So, as it stands right now, unless we're going forward with the current notice of violation, which is out in 2 days. Right?
Yeah.
Any comments from you two? Or-
Got nothing, no?
All right. Moving on to other business. Anything on that? Anything you? All right. Moving down to the communications.
I have one, but I'm gonna take it first. Anyone not sitting.
So I was at a workshop on Monday with the major logic historian, a bunch of people, and they are working on a project that is basically aimed, now that Ernie's gone, at, you know, helping communities revise their zoning ordinances, particularly relative to climate resiliency and sea level rise. And so they are writing a grant. And they've asked us if we want to be a partner in that grant application. So we would have to provide a letter of support, and the parts of the grant are to basically develop some ordinances aimed at climate resiliency in the shoreline zone, to, you know, potentially do some erosion control measures that are, the term is nature-based solutions, so they're not hardened, riprap, but are, often things offshore or vegetative buffers. And then the last thing is, escapes me, but anyway, that because the grant application is due the end of June, I told them I would bring it up tonight just to get a sense of the board's sense if they're willing to kind of be a partner on that. And all we have to do at this point is provide a letter of support, which, has a sort of predetermined format. So it's not a big lift, but I didn't want to say yes or no without checking with the board.
All right.
Can you say who's?
Pete Slavinsky at the Maine Geological Survey and Greater Portland Council of Governments. And I think those are the two primary partners, and whatever it is, the Department of Community Development that does planning.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. Any other communication? Or
I guess I'd just like to get a sense, because that's something we want to participate in.
I think it would be good for the island part.
You feel this would be beneficial?
Yeah, I think it would help us with this ordinance effort that, this is to bring some expertise to that so that we don't try to beat our heads against the wall doing it ourselves, which is frankly what I did for 5 years on the board. So,
I'm fine with it.
yeah.
Are you reading the letter?
Yeah, Vika will probably submit it, but you guys will see it before it goes because we have one more meeting, but I didn't want to spring it on you at that meeting. So I will put the letter together, send it to Vika.
Do you want me to write it yourself tonight?
I think they're gonna give us some guidance on what they need. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, any other communications? All right.
I have one. Do you have one?
No.
So I received a couple of days ago an email from a woman saying that her and her husband just spent their 47th wedding anniversary on this beautiful island, and they've been to 4 different islands in Casco Bay. And by far, Big Islanders were the friendliest and nicest people of any of the islands. And they felt very welcomed here. And that they wanted to thank Big residents for their kindness and welcome and hospitality. So, in lieu of this conversation, I thought that would be nice to share, so.
Actually, we did get an email from, sorry, thank you, from Hannah Smith, about some discrepancies on her tax map. Or not technically discrepancies, but it shows a right of way on her property, which is there on her deed. So when we had the tax map done, they put the right of way on there. She doesn't want it publicized and stuff, but so I'm having, I asked Vika to send an email to the person that did the tax maps. What their mindset was as far as what they put down and stuff like that, so. Cause it doesn't really delineate which one's a public right of way, and which one's a right of way, it just says right of way. So.
Yeah, I don't know what the protocol is.
So that's why we're getting clarification of the people that actually did the map, so.
All right, normally if it's in the registry of deeds, it can go on the town tax maps. That's my thinking, but I don't know.
Yeah. Well, she's asking to have it removed.
Because I guess I don't understand why,
She just doesn't want to use that public right.
but it is a public right of way.
It is not.
Not a public, it's a right of way to, it's in the deed. That it's a right of way to some of the abutters, and so it's showing it, and because it's not a public, she doesn't feel like it should be there for the public to see.
So it just, we haven't gotten,
Speaking of how Shabig is
information yet,
changing.
but so.
Is this in your message? What's the name?
Yes.
Right across from.
Yeah, I think
John's fault.
that's fine. I just make sure I knew what you're talking about.
All right, just basically to inform you guys what was going on. All right, any other communications? All right, I'm looking to approve minutes from May 17, 2023 and May 30th.
So move.
There's a second,
Second.
Second, Carol. All right. Any comments on this? Any comments from the public? Right. All in favor? All right, items to be placed on the future agenda. I have one thing that I wanted to bring up, and I don't know. Either it's a communication thing or whatever. With Vika being out suddenly. It was a lot of scrambling. You know, and there wasn't anything against Vika, it was just made me think that we don't have anything in place to really, you know, I don't know, it was just kind of me scrambling, trying to make sure everything was in, you know, the warrant was in, everything, so it was. Just didn't know, we don't have anything in writing or anything stating how to just proceed with this. Does it fall over to the chair? Does it, you know, who falls second in command? Is it the town clerk? Is it, you know, so it just, you know, there's nothing in our, you know, ordinance or policies or anything to state that. So.
There is nothing in,
Not that I know of. I know the board of selectmen ultimately is in charge of the town and stuff, but as far as the overall running of the town, if the town administrator is out.
yeah, it's a good point, a good question. I guess I assumed in absence of the town administrator, that the chairman was kind of charged temporarily.
And I think that level of absence probably hasn't happened often, so.
Question.
But so as far as I've been on, that's never happened before. So, and it's just something to think about in the back burners about thinking of. I don't know if it needs to be policy or something. I just
Well, we do have a, you know, a select board policy and it could be in there. So good point.
something to look.
I guess I thought it was formalized.
I may have forgotten yet something else. It's been a long 14 or 15 years.
I probably misread it too, so it's fine. I just wanted to put it out there. Anything else you want?
All of the municipal nominations are going to be on the next meeting. Whoever the new, select board member is going to be sitting here, at the next meeting, and so, the board will have to make a decision on who the new chair and vice chair are going to be.
At the meeting on the 21st.
And the nominations will be, you know, for town administrator, treasurer, town clerk, deputy clerk, all.
Lawyer.
So, yeah.
So the dredging will probably be on there.
I would assume an update will be on there. Yeah, and the same thing with Weston and Sampson, under the TA report, I'll probably put the contract in so you see it. And then a more thorough update will follow up in July after we meet with them.
And possibly the consolidated whole agreement.
If it comes back from consolidated.
I'm not saying it for this next meeting, but
Yes.
some other meeting. Are we gonna have a number for the dredging, so if we? I know we're recommending 80. That if we can bring that number down or up or whatever. Or would you?
From
recommend
what I was told today on the phone, that there's going to be a firm selected, and we will have a strong understanding of what those costs were going to be.
Sorry, you're gonna. Will you be able to give us a number by the time we?
Yes,
Okay, so I'm just wondering, on board, if we do have a smaller number that we can, based on their
Reduce
recommendation,
the-
based on details, that we reduce that
we
number.
would adjust the call like X amount of dollars from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right,
Okay,
yeah,
if that happens, then we simply decide
that.
likely to make a motion to lower it, and you have to get a second, and you have to allow conversation or opinion, excuse me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Discussion on the matter, and then take it up.
all right, any other, Jen?
We had talked about wanting to get a copy of the code enforcement job description. And discuss that, I would assume.
You want it as an agenda item, or do you want an email?
But-
Right.
Email. And also, any news about Long Island and what they found out about?
That meeting got moved,
Yeah,
due to my absence, so that's taking place next week.
Okay. Can't be any worse than that meeting we had.
All right, any other? Items?
and in honor of you, at our next meeting, we will discuss possibly what we might want to do for a retreat.
New computer.
On computer, yeah.
Yeah, I think a retreat would be great.
I'd like to go out to the hotel and before.
We sort of did for the school board and it was productive.
All right, so if there's any other items that need to be put on the next agenda, please shoot an agenda.
Okay.
I mean, if I get something for, Saturday, I'll obviously forward it to.
We're not gonna be active with your account tonight.
No, technically, after coming.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, all in favor? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night. Yeah.
Good, Jim.
Thank you, Jim.